Hi guys, and welcome to the podcast. I am, of course, your host and podcast founder, Lawrence Francis. I just want to take this opportunity to give you a quick overview of this series, which features coverage of the Dublin Wine and Cheese Festival, which took place at Iveagh Gardens in central Dublin between the 8th and the 11th of August 2019, which will air on the Interpreting Wine podcast between episodes 289 and episode 300. This will feature a mixture of talks and one-to-one interviews with some of the leading lights in the Irish and international wine scene. This consumer fair is now in its second year, and I was seriously impressed with the quality of speaker overall. I think that events of this type really lend themselves well to being covered for the podcast, and would love to feature more events of this kind in the future. So without further ado, here is today's episode of the Dublin Wine and Cheese Festival 2019 series. Today's episode of the podcast features Rory Craig of Station to Station Wine in his talk all about American wine. Here he busts a few myths about American wine, and we get the chance to taste through 3 examples which are available from Station to Station Wine. Also, if you listen very carefully, you'll hear Rory gives me a personal name check, highlighting that things don't always run according to plan around here. Enjoy.
Just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Rory Craig is my name. My company, Station to Station Wine.ie, is an online retailer. Our tagline for the company is "Don't be afraid, it's only wine." We make wine more accessible, we make more fun, and what we do is we just aim to put it in front of more people. Our retail offers kind of have a bit of a fun slant. We did the Tour de France mixed dozen, we did Game of Thrones, and really it's about just, as I said, making it more accessible. We don't sell we try not to sell straight sixes, try not to sell straight dozens. It's about tasting more wine and getting more wine in front of you, and that's kind of what this festival is all about. What the last big retail offer that we did was about American wine, so we're going to showcase a few of there was 40 wines we were doing on this offer. We're going to showcase a few of them here because I was jokingly saying that these are Trump wines. Trump recently said that American wine is better than French wine. That's not actually a novel idea, because in 1976 what put American wine on the map was an event called the Judgment of Paris. So it was a journalist called Steven Spurrier put together a tasting in California of the best American wines versus the best French wines. Now, he installed a few judges, all from France. They were leading winemakers, leading journalists, and leading wine personalities. And confident that the French would wipe the floor with the American wines, they sent their best and their brightest over. The tasting went on. It was the best of Burgundy and the best of Bordeaux versus America, and America just happened to wipe the floor with the French wine. All of the tasting was done blind. A couple of the French judges, Madame Leflaive, who is or not Madame Leflaive, I can't remember her name, one of the preeminent French journalists, was so unimpressed that she had selected the American wines to be better that she demanded the return of her notes, and she wouldn't allow her scores to be published. I think they went back to France and everyone said, "How'd it go? How'd the tasting go?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we won, of course." And so the Americans reported, well, actually we won. So it certainly there was a lot of there was a lot of excitement about American wine that put American wine on the map. Directly after that, in about the late 70s, early 80s, along came a very, very famous wine critic who you've probably heard of, called Robert Parker. His company, The Wine Advocate, he got very famous because he was able to pick some very, very good vintages in Bordeaux, and no question he was a very knowledgeable and very bright journalist, and he kind of brought wine reviews to the people, and it got very, very popular, and people they wouldn't buy wine unless the Wine Advocate gave them a good score. The problem was that he really enjoyed his big, over-extracted, overworked wines. So his reds had 15+% alcohol. His whites were big and buttery, and they just weren't, they were very of a style. They were very, very different to the European wines. Then in 2000, don't worry, I do have wine to pour. I'm going to pour it in 1 minute. Mari is going to help me. She's already glazing over. She wants to try wine. In about the year 2000, a group of young winemakers started playing around with the idea of actually promoting elegance and balance. Like the rest of the wine world, they stopped using so much oak and they just tried to make a more drinkable style. So we're going to look at a few of them today. Mari, do you mind pouring that side again? And I'm going to pour this side. So the first one we're going to look at is Camp Chardonnay. Okay, I'm just going to pour it and then I'll talk because I can't do both.
What's your company called?
Station to Station Wine. Station to Station Wine.ie. I'll just keep promoting it over the mic. I have said that name so many times today. So, who likes Chardonnay?
Yeah.
Look at Lawrence here. Lawrence is just sitting here drinking all day. This is work, Lawrence, is it?
Like a job.
Have you attended every event?
Yes. Did you? That's terrible.
No spitting either.
I'm getting there.
And I'm going to say it as well, mic'd me up for the first podcast and didn't press record. If it was the last one, we could understand, but it was the first one. Anyway, it was the nerves. It was the nerves. Okay, so wine number one is Camp Chardonnay. So, this is a style that, if we talk about what you'd expect from an American Chardonnay, usually they're very big, buttery, extracted. This is a lot more juicy and a lot more easy to drink. It's made by a guy called Kenny Lakita Prang, and he owns an urban winery. So he buys in all his grapes from a few different sources throughout California, and he's really he's just driving up and down the coast, visiting all his vineyards and putting his wines together. He makes wines under the Camp label, he makes wines under the Hobo label, so it's Camp wines, Hobo wines, Folk Machine wines, and there is one more which I can't remember. What do we think of that wine, guys? Guys, can we just keep the chatter down to a minimum for just while we pour these last two? Sorry? Exactly. So look, Chardonnay is traditionally a richer, more buttery style. It's not like your Sauvignon Blanc, and yet, you would probably want a bit of food in front of it, but unlike the very oaky, extracted style, this is much more kind of juicy, and he wants to have it as a bit of a summery drink. But this is the actual winemaker behind it is really, he really personifies what the new wave of American wine is about. He's a former skater, surfer. He looks after his vineyards. He sleeps on the beach. He's got he wanders around his urban winery barefoot. He runs ping pong tournaments in aid of charity. He's kind of the new wave of American wine, and he's really now starting to make some serious waves. What do we think? I'm getting polarizing looks here. But that's what Chardonnay is, Everyone's heard the phrase ABC, anything but Chardonnay, and that's from people who, people either love it or hate it. Whereas, and Chardonnay moves in and out of styles. There's you get people, it's very trendy to make a really, really big, extracted and rich Chardonnay 1 minute, and the next minute everyone is trying to make a leaner, Sauvignon Blanc style wine rather than this. But it's 12.5%, so it's actually got a little bit of volume. Who hates it? That's easier to actually understand. Well, that's not usually if we're talking, what do we got, about 20 people, usually we'd be at least 7 or 8 people would hate it with a passion. But if we talk about Burgundian, Burgundy is kind of the home of Chardonnay, and Burgundian Chardonnay is aged in oak, and it's aged for several years, and it's built for aging. It's built to go into the cellar. This is just built to get into the glass and drink. Okay, so I'm gonna have a taste of it. Hold on. I think it's delicious. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving through because I have been running over time all day. The next one we're going to look at is Viano Vineyards. And so going from Kenny Lakita Prang, the winemaker of the first one, who's a skater punk and sleeps on the beach and all that sort of stuff, I'm jumping back to a really old school producer now, just to show that balanced, nice wines are not the domain of, the cool millennials. This Viano Vineyards are from Contra Costa County in San Francisco. An old Italian family came to America about 80 years ago. At the time, there were loads and loads of wineries within the area. Over time, urban sprawl has taken over and all of the vineyards are gone, apart from these guys. And they just make really, really honest to goodness wines. American wine is more expensive. Just is. It's to do with the way it comes out of the country. It's to do with people generally not owning their vineyards. This is actually the cheapest wine on the station-to-station wine retail offer. It's 17. But this is a natural wine before natural was natural. He doesn't use any chemicals. He doesn't use any pesticides. It's all dry farmed, so there's no irrigation. He uses natural rainwater, and it's an honest to God wine. Also, there's no vintage on it. So it's called Hillside's Red. It's basically, this is how wine used to be made all over the world, which is just a wine is just a field blend. You just grab the grapes and you throw them in. And it's down to, not everyone can make a field blend. You have to be a good winemaker. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know your fruit. So this is a mixture of Gamay and Zinfandel. And as I said, they make Cabernet Sauvignon, they make Chardonnay, they make a couple of different things, but this is really their table wine. And it's kind of a throwback to their Italian heritage, where they make their private reserve selection to sell, but they make kind of some drinking wine just for the table at home. So, Mary, do you mind pouring that one? And again, talk amongst yourselves because I can't pour and talk. Okay, first off, you can kind of you can see, straight away you can see something about it. The colour is very, very light. That is to do with the two grape varieties. So Zinfandel is one half of it. Zinfandel is kind of the American variety. It's known as Primitivo in Italy. It's Zinfandel here. And the other half of it is Gamay, which is used in Beaujolais. And if you've tasted Beaujolais, you'll know it's very light and very fruity. I get my friend in front of me here doesn't like this one either. No? So what do we think of this one? No? No, again, these are interesting styles. These are styles that we're not going to come across every day. But what's really nice about it, I think, is that the family behind the wine are still just making the wine. Their prices aren't going up the whole time. They work with the same distributors all over the world, and they just do it enough to keep the developers away from their land, because they're literally, everyone else has sold out.
Nice, I like the table wine.
Sorry?
It's strictly a table wine.
What do you mean?
You have a dinner.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And look, it's about, the table wine, the old version of table wine is just something that kind of goes with everything. It's something you can drink with food. It's something you can drink before dinner. It's something you can drink after dinner, and it's got a bit of depth and complexity, and it kind of, it will match a variety of dishes. Yeah, it's light. It's light, but there's I always think with this wine, it's light, but there's a good bit of flavour to it, and that comes from the Zinfandel, which is a very, very fruity outward. Well, it depends. I mean, any of the wines you find here are going to be, all of these distributors are going to be importing their wines in, temperature-controlled reefers, and, it'll be absolutely fine. There is Well, exactly. No, look, I mean, everything is temperature controlled, but I mean, it does, you know, that's technically, but I mean, I'm sure we've all been on holidays where you try a wine and you go, this is the most amazing thing I've ever drunk in my life. Then you go home and you go find it and you...
What is it?
We've got a case of this now. What are we going to do with it? Let's have a party. So what are we a thumbs up or a thumbs down on this? What would you, thumbs down. What would you match it with? What would people eat with it? Crisps, smoky bacon crisps, smoky cheddar cheese. I always think this would be a really, really good bolognese or pasta wine. You know, so it doesn't, you know, when we're talking about actually matching a bit of wine with a bit of food, it doesn't have a huge amount of tannin. So you probably don't want to have it with something which is with a lot of protein, with a lot of meat. It's something that'll go well with a bolognese or a very plain pasta sauce. Sorry? Exactly. When you're matching, you just want complementary flavors. So this is a lighter wine. You want on the lighter side. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I think this is the last one, and I've gotten we've gotten 2 litre bottles to finish off today. So you can actually, you know, don't rush off. We'll do a heavier pour with this one, and you can sit down and you can enjoy the last of it. Again, this is, guys, let me just tell you about this wine and we'll finish up. This is, again, this is another wine which really personifies what American wine is about at the moment. It's made by a guy called Tim Mathiasen. His main label, Mathiasen Wines, is one of the best white wine producers in America at the moment. But he also has this range called Tendu. Tendu means tension in French, and that is kind of about it's about the acidity and the freshness and the tautness of the wine. And this is kind of it's a good one to follow the Hillsides, because I think people, it's actually made in a similar style. It's supposed to be a wine that you can sit down and, you know, smash before dinner and with dinner and after dinner. It is made from Italian varieties. The winemaker says it's like an Italian Beaujolais, but it's made from Montepulciano, Barbera, Aglianico, and perhaps another Italian variety, all thrown in together. And I tried to put a little bit of a chill on it, and it's gone a bit warm because it's such a beautiful day. We won't complain about that. But you know, these wines are supposed to be drunk with a little bit of a chill. You know, Beaujolais is like, there's nothing better than sitting in the sun and actually have a light red wine. So, yeah. So the first one, the Camp Chardonnay, is from a few different plots up and down the Californian coast. The Hillside is from Contra Costa County, which is up in San Francisco, and this is from the Napa Valley. And the Napa Valley is up near San Francisco.
Here's how you can concentrate.
Okay, so we'll finish up on this wine, but again, I just want this is a good indicator of where American wine is at the moment. This is interesting wine, and this is just fun, easy drinking wine. What do we think about it? You go a long way to find someone who hates it, I would have thought, but I might be wrong. Who hates it? No. It's all, you know, with all of these wines as well, it's all biodynamic and organic fruit. They're all using natural yeasts, and it's vegan friendly. It's got the whole shebang. Huh? Exactly. It's dangerous. It's smashable. But do you think there's a sometimes when a wine is dangerous, it's a bit too like Ribena, and there's a fruitiness, but there's a lovely texture, and it's nice. Sorry? Exactly, yeah, exactly, and he'd love to hear you say that, because it is about that tangy tension. So look, I'll finish up by saying if anyone is in on Saturday, what we are going to do, I spoke at the start about the Judgment of Paris. What we're going to do is there's another American tasting where we're going to look at a few different wines on Saturday afternoon. We're going to finish off that session with what we've called the Judgment of Dublin. So if you are here, put your name down because we're going to do the same. We're going to blind taste 3 French wines and 3 American wines, and we are going to see who the winner is. So look, please jump onto the site stationtostationwine.ie and hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. You can get in contact with me through the website at any of the contact details if you like any of these wines, and enjoy the rest of the festival. Thanks a million.
Thank you so much, Rory, for all your energy and talks across the weekend. Please see below for all the wines tasted during the talk and the website where you can find these, stationtostationwine.ie, as well as their main social media handles. And while you're at it, why not follow along with me on social, where I'm at Interpreting Wine on Instagram and Facebook, at Wine Podcast on Twitter, and email hello@interpretingwine.com. Next up, in episode 293, we hear from Shane Murphy and DJ Marcus O'Lear talking all about acidity and wine. See you then.